our dear guests, dear viewers, and fellow citizens. A good afternoon and welcome back to your favorite series, the Inter-University Debate Show. My name is Sharon Mukisa and I am your host for this particular episode. Our topic today centers around credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961 to date, Uganda's quest for credible, free and fair elections. And of course, we are going to look at the 30 years of the Constitution. What does it mean for us and what loopholes does it have or what is it trying to resolve around elections? So today in our discussion, we are going to understand what factors are contributing to the lack of credible elections in Uganda. Why is it that people are losing trust in the election process? Why is it that people today choose not to vote? With me today, I have a panel of two guests, gentlemen, who have joined us today and they're going to share their perspective as we dive into the discussion today. Allow me to introduce them. They are students from Uganda Chrsitian University, and first is Tamale Nkoyooyo, who is from Uganda Chrsitian University, who is also a Launchpad debate president. We are very happy to have you here today.
Happy to be here too, Sharon.
Thank you. He is a regular on the show. And next we have Ssegawa William Elvis, who is also from Uganda Chrsitian University. We are very glad to host you today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so today our panel consists of only gentlemen and we are ready to dive into this discussion. But before we go far, we need to understand, what are elections? What do they mean to us? Is it only right that we should vote? Is it a constitutional right, or is it just a by the way? So taking us through what elections mean and what is the legal framework governing elections is Tamale Nkoyooyo.
Thank you very much, Sharon. I am happy to be here today and also deliberate on issues of national importance. And now that we're in the electoral process, we have had the presidential candidates being nominated, and we congratulate all those that have gone through the process. And those, you remember that we had over 200 picking forms, but a few. And by the end of this show, we shall have received a report from the Electoral Commission on how many have been able to have been nominated. And so I think we, as a country, it's a great step in the right direction, and we congratulate the Electoral Commission, save for the inconsistencies so far that have been identified. Before I delve into the topic or taking us into what elections are, allow me send regards to, we have members who are daily, they love the show so much and they always wait for it. One of them is Comrade Ravin Koma. He can't wait to have this show played.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you very much, Ravin, for his
Ravin Koma. Then another one is Zwat Timothy. Just sent me a message like, every day I wait for the link to watch the show. So friends, we are very happy that you're following and we hope to see you. We shall host you. I will request that you get to be part of this panel sometime. Back to the issue, Sharon. Elections. You have stated that we had elections since 1961, but our first elections were in 1958 with the legislative elections ordinance that was enacted in 1957. Then from those, where we got representation of members of legislative council, or that we call assembly. Then coming to 1961, 1962, 1964 referendum that is very instrumental to the political history of this country, in which we had the election, the referendum that decided on the lost counties of Buyaga and Bugangaizi. Yes? And if you recall very well, in our primary history, the election to those to have the lost counties, that referendum has a very great impact on the political history, to the ghost that is still haunting us, that the friction between the then president and the prime minister, Apollo Milton Obote, started from. Then coming to these other elections that we had in 1980 under Paul Muwanga, the elections that brought in Milton Obote II, yes, going forward to 1996 under this constitution. But now, as we deliberate, I want to give a perspective under the current laws, under the 1995 Constitution. First, our Constitution under the second national objective, democratic principles, that people are mandated to take part in these electoral processes and governance of their country, take up leadership positions, but most importantly, Article 1 of the Constitution that states power belongs to the people and shall use it to exercise in the way they are governed and also the affairs of their country are run. Also looking at Article 60, 61, the duty to participate in electoral processes, Article 17, going to Article 60. Yes, the right to vote. Yes, people to getting involved and decide which leaders are going to lead them. As the laws state, every after 5 years, we go into an election and decide which we are going to take part. Now, these elections are guided, much as the Constitution provides for these guidelines under Article 60, 17, Article 1, National Objective 2. We need to appreciate the Parliamentary Elections Act and also the Presidential Elections Act and the Local Government Act, because these establish elections, a process through which these leaders are elected. One, the President; two, the members of Parliament under Parliamentary Elections Act, and the local government for the local authorities. And so these legal frameworks, much as in our deliberations to come, I will give my views on what I think our electoral legal regime stands today. But I think those are very important to this discussion as we deliberate further. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. You have stressed that they indeed have a legal framework, so we are doing this legally.
Yeah.
They are provided for in the Constitution and the various laws, as Tamale has mentioned. And since now we have understood that elections do have a legal framework, we need to understand, again, how Uganda chose the democratic path. How did we get here as a country? And following up on our history will be Ssegawa taking us through.
Thank you so much, Sharon and Comrade Tamale, for those very beautiful insights and for the opportunity to submit on this show today. Tamale Nkoyooyo has hinted a bit about the history that we now have as a country and where we come from mainly in our democratic processes. We didn't start here, of course, just like you aren't born a 20-year-old. You come from somewhere. And that's also true to the Ugandan landscape, that, as he said, in 1958, the LegCo and the whole chaos around 1961 that laid the foundation for the independence struggles. And then we see on October 9th, 1962, Uganda then gets independence, just like very many other African states. So from the period of 1962 to date, we've been having a series of insurgencies, one, but then also something that one could term as a bit of a breath of thin air to say that now we are looking towards the light. In the year 1961, between the year 1961 and the year 1965, 1961 to 1965, we see that there are issues, just like he hinted, that we had to figure out the issues of the two lost counties that form a very good grounding onto what we see now as the democratic processes that we follow as a country. Between the year 1962 and 1965, we see that there are a lot of issues around Kabaka Yeka, of course, that has some ties to the monarchy, that is the Kingdom of Buganda. But then we also have other issues towards now the UPC that was led by then His Excellency Milton Obote. He was a president, and there is a lot of power struggles between then and now. And then following that, when you fast forward, because of course between the year 1965 to the 1970s, Milton Obote is kinda in charge. Then we then enter a transition period where His Excellency Amin Dada then stages a coup. Now that's in 1970, so he gets into power in 1971, and then there is a departure around 1979. Of course, I'm trying to cover a lot there, but we are now starting to paint the picture of the road that we've been following since then and now. In the year 1980, we then have an election. Now that election is what was contested by the now President of the Republic of Uganda, where he says that there are irregularities that were tainted in this election roadmap that was now announcing his then contenders. So between the year 1980 to the year 1985, yes, 1985, 1986 there, of course, that's January 25th where we have our liberation. But that's between that time where the now president of Uganda goes out for a guerrilla war, trying to reclaim, because he was saying he is the legitimate president because he knew that he had won, but because of the irregularity that he was talking about, he was not announced as the winner. So he went into the bush to fight for those very many years, and then 1986 we managed now to reclaim what is Uganda today. Between 1986 to date, we've been having one regime under, first of all, FRONASA, then NRM, the reigning political party, the regime. And of course, we are now recounting towards, I think next year it's going to be 40 years of the same regime that we are having. Between the years of 1986 to the year 1995, that's September 27th, very, very soon, where we have now the birth of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. The regime that was in power then, the same regime that we are having now, was carrying out some structural adjustment programs to try to realign the economic landscape of Uganda, the social landscape of Uganda. Issues of unity and tribalism were being fought during those years. And then we see the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, the one that we are running on now, being established in the year 1995. So if we are to count, very, very soon, 27th September, the Constitution of Uganda is going to make 30 years. And that's as much as the politics of the politics, electoral and democratic landscape of Uganda is standing today.
Okay, thank you very much. So far right now, we understand what elections are. And we've understood that these are electoral processes. These are processes through which the people get to choose who is to represent them. And we've understood that they indeed do have a legal framework. And Ssegawa has taken us through the history of how Uganda got to become a democratic country, or at least we say so and believe so. But obviously, I would like to hear your views on that. Do you think, coming on to Tamale, do you think Uganda is a democratic country practically, rather than just writing about it and in theory? Is it really a democratic country?
Being a law student I am, I may not be in position to assertively align myself with the question whether Uganda is a democratic country or not. But all I can do is give my perspective
of course,
how I view things. Yes. Looking at our elections and our quest for free and credible elections, yes, we need to appreciate the Electoral Commission under Article 61 is mandated to hold regular, free and fair elections. And the regular they talk about is every after 5 years. And then Chief Justice of Kenya, David Maraga, in the case of Raila Odinga versus the Independent Electoral Commission, IBEC, and others who include Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, stated that elections are a process and not an event. Yes, they are a process, not an event. Elections are not a thing that we see or we watch during the polling day. Elections are a process from the time we vote for the current leaders to the time we vote again. So we have been into an electoral process from the time we voted in 2021 to this period, because that's when we take to update voters register, yes, first having the leaders elected, gazetted, then updating our information on the register, shifting and all that. Yes, political party participation, all that is entailed within the process. And so, in our deliberations under today's topic, we must appreciate, is the process we have today, does it offer us what the Constitution mandates the Electoral Commission to do under Article 61, a regular, free and fair election? What amounts to a fair election? What amounts to a regular one? Yes? Now, an election is a chance, like we earlier on noted, for a people to decide which people are going to take charge of their affairs in the country, which people are going to take charge of their lives, social services, health and education, mention it. Now, how do we arrive to the fair process that we talk about? The political environment under which political parties operate, yes. State apparatus, how it is being used, mention the military, mention the police, mention the national media houses, yes, UBC, New Vision, how is that space utilized there? When you read the Presidential Elections Act, Article 23 and 24 read in tandem with each other, they mandate that under this process, all candidates are supposed to be given or accorded equal treatment regardless of their position in government. If it means use of state-owned media houses, state-owned equipment, you all have a chance to make use of that. But what do we see during our elections? That some candidates cannot even have their adverts played, adverts that are paid for, played to air out what their manifestos entail. Yes? The Electoral Commission is also mandated to protect the electoral space. Yes? Political parties has, if NUP has forwarded their constitution, do you assess it, make recommendations to it, and consider what amendments they want to make for them to inspire an electoral process within the internal party democracies? Or you frustrate? If they submit their signatures, do you indeed assess them, and then after you forward to them a letter that is backdated against what you had earlier on noted? So all those entire what a fair process tells is one would take it to define what a fair process is to an election. So once those things are not considered, then that negates the fact that we have free and fair elections. We have seen during elections, and sometimes it looks like the Electoral Commission is overpowered by the state. Yes, the military takes over. Today, when I was coming, I saw a military bus carrying NRM supporters to Kololo. Yes? Are we going to have a fair process? Can another candidate from another political party have the UPDF bus carrying members? Yes? Have you as Electoral Commission controlled the finances that are being splashed in the elections? Because that is going to go back to the bond to negate the fact that the elections are going to be fair. The money, have you investigated the source of this money that people are splashing in the elections? That is going to go back to whether the elections are fair or not. So elections are just not merely an event, but a process. Which process is blessing us with the leaders who are going to handle our affairs as a nation? Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tamale. I mean, we've understood that elections are indeed a process, because most of us look
aren't an event.
They are not an event.
Yes.
Most of the people often look at 2026, when is it coming, when is the day coming, but we forget all that happens before we actually get there. We forget the updating of the registers. True. We forget to register. We forget all of these significant milestones that happened right before we actually cast the ballot. Thank you very much. So in short, in your view, is that democracy or not?
Now, on the face of it, would agree that there is democracy, but what quality of democracy do we have?
Okay.
One would urge out that we go, like it has been said over time, that we go for elections every after 5 years and vote for our leaders. Then how do you, like people have stated, how do you term the president, Mr. Museveni, a dictator, yet you go for elections and vote? But how is the electoral process carried out? How much money is expended in those elections? Where does it come from? Does that amount to the kind of elections that we want? So the democracy would be there, but what quality is it? There is a term that I'll leave at it, I'll just let it be what we call dicta blanda. Dicta blanda is where you're given seemingly some bit of democracy, but in real sense it's not there. Yeah, you go to court, this time around you go, you win. Yes, remember parliamentary petitions, you go and win. But when it comes to presidential elections, you cannot win. Yes? And then after someone will urge out, there is democracy because when you went to court, you nalukola. Last time we were saying that the courts are not fair. Now you have won a case. Are you going to still urge out that the courts are not fair? You see? But on what gravity of the case, we're talking about a presidential matter that courts have failed to have the guts to decide on presidential elections. Then you cannot weigh that with that of parliamentary. So democracy is there, but what quality of democracy do we have?
Okay, thank you very much. And that is Tamale Nkoyooyo's view as to is there democracy in Uganda? And he says it is, but questions as to what kind of democracy, what quality of democracy is there. So coming to William Ssegawa, is there democracy in this country?
Well, just like he said, I will first not answer that question. Maybe I'll answer it towards the end. As I was submitting earlier on, I forgot a key significant point that changed a lot of what we are discussing today. In the year 2005, we saw the return of multi-party politics in the country. So I was reading an article earlier today, and I saw that right now we have 27 registered political parties. And of those, of course, the 26 opposition, and then one, like it should be. And when we look at, he has mentioned most of the issues we are having. We are seeing a lot of militarization of elections. We know that 2026 is arriving very soon, but we are seeing deployment of as early as 2025 today. I was also moving around in town, appearing here, and I also saw similar instances of loaded military vehicles, but not loaded with security officials, but with people dressed in yellow. I didn't get a keen look to see yellow was branded with what, but I saw yellow. There are also issues to do with...
They could have been prisoners.
Possibly. I don't want to say they were supporting a certain...
We suppose. But today prisoners have been over-moving. They're coming from Mukono everywhere.
It's the judicial system. But we also see issues to do with media. In the 2021 general elections, very, very recently here, we saw that Uganda's internet was cut off for something close to how many days? 4 days? For you to access internet, you needed a VPN. That's an invention of the young generation I use. But so there was a large cutoff between the media. People outside, it was so hard for them to know what's happening in the country. Now, of course, that raises suspicion onto what is really going on down that side. Why are we not able to know from the media, from the media houses, what's happening in Uganda? How are the polls that side? And of course, issues of this evening, we are seeing someone is leading, then all of a sudden 2 hours, 2 hours into time, you see now someone is leading. So that's a discussion for another day. The biggest issue here, when we are talking about democracy, is that as the constitution, it is a promise. A constitution is a promise between a state and then that is the citizenry, the people that are being led, the state and the citizens. A
social contract.
Yes, because now we are agreeing that this is how we are going to be operating in this country. Now, when we see that there are issues in that line whereby people can now start making amendments in the constitution in whatever way they want, then we start raising concerns onto the kind of democracy, the quality, like he said, the quality of democracy that we are operating in as a country today. in the year 2007, 75.
About what?
About the limit on term limit.
2005.
2005, right when they, after the multi-party introduction, then we have an introduction of
Term limits.
yeah, removal of term limits. That's one. Recently here in 2017, we also see another issue where the age limits are being removed. Therefore now I can stand as long as I have a national ID, I am 19 years old or 18, I can go and I become the president of this republic. And well, I'm in charge of policies, I'm in charge of ensuring social cohesion, I'm in charge of the infrastructure, the hospitals, the education systems, because, well, I'm the president. And there is a very, very big issue when we just look at it in that direction. Of course, in addition to what Comrade Tamale has said earlier. So to me, in my own view, we have some kind of democracy, because we can stand up, because democracy in my mind is that the people are in charge of themselves, but they are in charge of themselves in a way of electing or appointing or sending a name forward without being forced to like take the lead for a given period of time. So Ugandans agree and they're like, you know what, at RLC1, we are trusting Tamale Nkoyooyo to lead us for the next 5 years. They've agreed, they've not been coerced, and there is nothing like a gun onto someone's head that this should be the way things are done. So we have a bit of democracy, especially if we are to look at it in the lower levels of governance. And of course, there are issues there, but a bit, if we are to put it percentage-wise, we can say we are maybe 80%, 80% contented with the way things are happening. But on the larger scale, the national scale, we know that the quality of democracy we are having is just not where it is supposed to be. So there is a word he used that I am forgetting, but I feel like that's where we are aligned.
Dicta blunder.
Dicta blunder, yes, that's something that we are operating with today.
So the question goes to Tamale. Elvis has explained to us. The history of how Uganda got to democracy. He has explained to us how we got to choose the path of being a democratic country. So based on the elections that we saw back in the day and the recent elections, we'd like to call them recent, 2021, 2006, those recent, the elections in 2000s, rather. Are you seeing any common themes in those elections vis-a-vis the ones that happened back in the day? Are there common themes?
Yeah, common things. Now, like I stated, that today's discussion is going to rotate so much around the definition that David Marak gives to what an election is, that it's a process and not an event, and looking at the process through which our chairpersons, members that are appointed to conduct this process, are they in position to independently carry out this duty? Now, that said, weighing whether we have the issues that we had in 2021 and the past elections, if they are reoccurring in the process that we are in, leading us to 2026. In the case of Dr. Kizza Besigye versus Yoweri Museveni and the Electoral Commission, Justice Kanyehamba notes of an inquiry and a trial. These are very important things, and this decision has been carried on, leading us to the decision in Amama Mbabazi versus Museveni and the Electoral Commission, where the Supreme Court made recommendations of reforms that must be made that must be enacted into law by Parliament for us to better our electoral process. And one of them was the period upon which members have a chance to challenge presidential elections. That has not been carried out yet. It has not been implemented. And if there is an amendment, that was not sufficient. That after 10 days, after 15 days of the election, that must be Section 59 of the Presidential Elections Act, that within the first 15 days upon the elections, that's when the person has the capacity to sue or petition court challenging the presidential elections. But 10 days are not enough for a candidate to traverse the entire country to collect evidence necessary to have an election nullified or substantively challenged. Yes, so that time, that issue is still lacking in our electoral process, and that is going to tell a lot about. That's going to tell about our process as a country. Yes, if it is not put right, and we're going to 2026 elections. Yes, the other thing to consider also is the campaigning period. I think 2 months back, we hosted the chairperson electoral commission, Justice Wabakama, and I asked him, "You've offered 100 days to these presidential candidates to traverse the entire country, a country that has close to 145 districts, and you want them to traverse it in 100 days. How possible is it with a kind of our transport network, with a kind of military intervention into these processes, the brutality through which members of the opposition are treated, that even in a day they cannot move in a sub-county, and then for you want them to traverse the country in 100 days of a country that has 145 districts. That alone affects and also impeaches the credibility of the kind of elections that we are going to have. And we are carrying on with that thing, and the excuse that he has is that the constitutional considerations, the constitution mandates them to carry out elections between, I think, within the 120 days, something of that kind. By that time, we must have had a president in the last 30 days of the 122 days. Yes, so we are entering into an election with that, but also over militarization of the electoral process. You have seen, he has noted, of the UPDF vehicles carrying members of a specific party, the NRM, and who you said must have been prisoners. And in my perspective, I think, yes, they are prisoners of the system. Those who are putting on yellow, and you alluded yellow to be color of the prisons. And for me, I'm saying those are prisoners of the system. Now, the public institutions and agencies, and as the Presidential Elections Act says, these are supposed to be independent in the operation. If it is offering security, that security must be offered to all members. And if there is any kind of consideration of that kind of assistance, let us have the military trucks then lining up at Makere Kavule, carrying members of the National Unity Platform to Kalerwe, to wherever, to Katwe, where the NUP is going to conduct its rally, whether it is possible. Not until we better our politics, not until we better our electoral process, that we are going to have a thing we talk about. So a lot of inconsistencies in the past elections are still going, recurring, and we doubt whether we can achieve what we are looking at, a free and fair election that the Constitution talks about under Article 61.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tamale. You have noted that a lot of inconsistencies are still the same. The ones that we saw back in the day in our history, as explained to us, and also today in the recent elections, we are seeing irregularities, we are seeing loopholes, we are seeing inconsistencies today, and how much more of this can we take? So this has been our first half, and we shall be back after the break.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
So we'll come back after the break, and we are continuing with our topic today, which is the credibility of elections in Uganda since 1961, the quest of free, fair and credible elections in Uganda. And of course, we are discussing the 30 years of the Constitution. So turning back to what our discussion was, we had ended off with Tamale citing for us that there are irregularities, there are loopholes and inconsistencies that are a common theme throughout the elections that we have had since 1961. And now turning to William Ssegawa, I'll pose the same question to you. What common themes have you seen in the elections currently or recently vis-a-vis the elections that we've had in the past?
Thank you so much, Sharon. Yeah, there is a concept that I was thinking about. It's called the political business cycles. Now, it's more of an economic concept that speaks to democracies and mature, election processes. Now, the political business cycle, it speaks to the point whereby an incumbent regime uses economic macroeconomic indicators to speak to the point of showing the general public that they have been really working over the past maybe so years, and that creates a perception among the citizenry that, whoa, these guys have been working, so we should just take them back to where they've been. That's a political business cycle. Uganda has, and of course it has, it's usually shown, it manifests as high inflationary issues towards or around elections, issues of the fluctuations of our foreign exchange reserves and etc. So it's a bit economic, but that's there. Then we also have another concept I was reading somewhere about mature economies, mature democracies, and the writer that I was reading from, I always forget his name, he's German. He classified individuals in democracies into three broad categories. The first one are what he called the hobbits. Now, the hobbits are these individuals that do not really care about whatever is going on in their country. For them, they will be there and they'll wait. Maybe if the people who are in charge of policy have maybe imposed the high tax onto their business, that's when they will start minding about what happens in the political arena. So that the hobbits, they don't care. They wake up, they go to work, and they just be there chilling. We also have another term that he used. Of course, it's a bit controversial. He called them the hooligans. And he says that the hooligans are the individuals that, for them, they are so indoctrinated that they believe in one key concept and they cannot change. If someone supports the NRM, they support the NRM, and when they go to the polling stations, they will vote everywhere they see yellow or the bus. They are so much into the ideologies of NRM that you just cannot tell them otherwise. It's also the same as FDC, PFF, NUP, and those are the political parties. So the hooligans, they are also there. Then he goes on and explains another key concept, the third group, the Vulcans. Now the Vulcans are the ones, other books call them philosopher kings. For them, they analyze the issues. They know that, for them they are kind of objective. They can go to a polling station and they vote an NRM, they vote an FDC and a NUP because they know of these people's capabilities. They've interacted with them, so they know what they can do when they get into the leadership positions. It's so similar to what's happening in Uganda today. Back to the question why I drawn those two things I was talking about. The political or election landscape of the country today is not so similar compared to what we saw back then. These last 30 or so years, post 2000s, we have been seeing the same issues that keep on arising. Back in the 19s, we saw issues of the military and state-owned agencies interrupting the processes of elections, where people were being abducted, where people were not taken for trials as the law suggests or dictates. Dictates suggests. The law dictates.
Yes.
And all of those kinds of issues. Of course, back then we weren't in a very polar world like today, where we have social media and where we have a world that has no borders and boundaries. Today, it's more into the open. And today we are having people who are noting down whatever is going on. From the few that we can read back in the history, these things are key pointers towards what was happening then. And when you read issues to do with maybe the president, of course, this is thanks to Obote, he gave a lot of power to the seat of the president, and it's trickling down into what Comrade Tamale was saying. This gentleman already is in charge of all of these things. He appoints these guys, man. You cannot go against your boss. He gave you that position. And of course, even when we go to parliament, the committees that, not like he was saying, the committees are also infiltrated, because we know that the ruling party has the biggest number of seats in the parliament. And therefore, you just cannot tell me that these people, even if a committee has, let's say, 16 or 16, it's usually 16 to 4. I was reading some stats. 16 to 4, you have 4 independent opposition individuals on a committee, and the other 16 are from the NRM to constitute a 20-member committee. And therefore, they cannot vet someone out because it's the boss who sent that individual there. And so when we are to compare what is happening today and what is happening back then, there is not so much of a change. There is an individual who has been in prison for now 8 months, Dr. Kizza Besigye, and the gentleman is not being tried. Of course, there is a lot of controversy in the news and the media stations, but this is also speaking to what was happening to the individuals who spoke against the regime back in the 19th. So if I am to look, this is just a modernized kind of confusion that is now, it's more written about and it's all over the internet and everyone can see what's happening. But even back then, where we didn't have cameras, and the few fragments of history that we are able to pick up from those discussions, we see that there is really no difference. It's just the same cycle of chaos and chaos.
Sharon, maybe before you shift to another, I've had an opportunity with my colleague here. We had an opportunity to be part of the training by Julius Nyerere Leadership Center. And in one of the sessions, they gave us a quote from Julius Nyerere that I think it's very instructive to the deliberations we're taking on today. And they quoted him to have said, "Peace is born of hope. When hope is gone, there will be social upheavals." Peace is born of hope. When hope is gone, there will be social upheavals. Now, we should not at any time kill the hope of Ugandans to change, to have a chance to peacefully have a transition in this country. First, like we stated, we lost term limits, then we lost age limit, we lost term limits, then we lost age limits. Now, the Constitution has lost it. Any safeguard that would enable us have a peaceful transition has been cleared. Now, if the day the citizens will lose their calm in the processes, what then is going to be left of us? So mine is a clarion call to whoever is in charge of the elections and all of us, both the voters, the Electoral Commission, inclusive of the state agencies. We must treat this process with the sanctity that it deserves, that it is saving us a lot. It's saving us from the history that we saw in our country, the events of 1980, where President Museveni under UPM got 1 vote, and the only alternative he had was to go for a guerrilla war. Yes, and Milton Obote came back. Museveni, who even didn't come second, felt so frustrated. We must not see such events reoccurring, that people lose trust in the electoral process and the only thing they can resort to is to run to the streets. We must treat the elections as a very important process. We must not let people lose hope in this process for a peaceful transition in this country.
So you still have hope that it will get better and we shall have a peaceful transition?
I am deriving this from the quote from Nelson Mandela. Peace is born of hope.
Do you have hope, you as a youth of today?
I said we had provisions within the Constitution that would give people hope that maybe if he attains 75, he will leave us. when he did, when he gets done with his political term, the terms, he will leave us. Then that was scrapped off. Then we're like, maybe when he attains 75, he will leave us. That was also done away with. So, slowly, step by step, we are clearing away all the steps necessary for people to retain hope within our electoral process, because that is part of it. In Kenya, their 2010 constitution has accorded them a peaceful transition after Uhuru Kenyatta having his 2 political terms. He retired peacefully. He didn't contest again. Obama, much as the Americans still wanted him, after his 2 political terms, he went and rested. He's there. He's now making public speeches. That's the best he can do. The constitution had a limit on him. Yes? Now, as Ugandans and all members, stakeholders involved in the electoral process, we must not let people lose hope in the electoral process. And the way events unfold, that's where we're heading towards a country. And that's going to be a dire situation for us as a country.
Yes.
And we don't wish to have the events of 1980 reoccurring in 2025 and 26.
Okay, and Tamale, as you encourage us to have hope and make sure people do not lose hope, do you still have hope?
All the stakeholders involved in this process, all the stakeholders within this process, don't let people lose hope in the electoral process. But the way events are running,
but it starts with you. You should have hope. So
that's why I'm a registered voter. But if I register to vote, the election day, you cannot allow my political party come and talk to me, sell ideas to me. What's that? The commercialization of politics, the too much money spent. That also dilutes the process, the electoral process. And indeed, now people are going to lose hope that even if we vote, the person you have voted for cannot be announced, because the other candidate has money and can influence the electoral commission, can influence voters. So your voice is not going to be heard, and the entire essence of the election is to have your voice heard.
Okay, thank you very much, Tamale. I'm taking that as a yes. He still has hope that there will be peaceful transition. So coming to Elvis, would like to understand, I mean, we have discussed thoroughly the history, we have talked about what elections mean to us, and we've also hinted onto the Electoral Commission a little bit. But then centering around our topic today, which is the credibility of elections, what do you think are the factors that are contributing to lack of credibility in these elections today?
Well, it's just one key issue here, and I think he hit on it a bit as he was submitting. The political influence on the Electoral Commission. The commissioners that are in charge, the chair and the commissioners who are in charge of this electoral process are all appointed by one individual who is now, again, the incumbent. So, it's just general knowledge. You cannot bite the hand that feeds you. And so it's just the credibility here. We lose the hope or the confidence in the kind of process that is being fronted. It's like I and Tamale coming from the same household, and then our father is standing for chairperson, and then we are aligning onto some other person because we feel like they are better they will be better as you know, interested in such a position, maybe chairperson or what. It is just completely illogical. You have to start by your own. It's human. It's human nature, and that's the issue right there. You just cannot have an individual who is because he's the incumbent, so he's appointing these individuals into those positions, and they're in charge of announcing who won, and we don't know what happens inside. Of course, we know what happens at the polling station, but we don't know what happens at those other tally centers. You saw situations whereby they were telling us that the vehicles that were transporting the ballot boxes from Moyo had reached the tally center, but then the boxes of Machinde had not reached.
Wakiso and Kampala.
Yes,
never counted.
Yes, and Wakiso and Kampala. And then the chairperson of the Electoral Commission comes on and they're like, even if we received the ballots of these districts, or mainly central districts, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election that much. So we lose the confidence right there, because we're like, so I lined up, scorching sun, I got in my thumb inked up, and I was there waiting, and then my ballots never reached the tally center. So why did I even choose to go there and exercise my constitutional mandate. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is that the security agencies must leave issues of elections to the Electoral Commission. We don't have a reason as to why the Uganda People's Defense Forces that are well known throughout the region for for disbanding rebellious groups like M23 and ADF all over the place. There is no reason as to why we should carry those people in their uniforms to come and be the ones who are overseeing the elections. And yet we have agencies like the police. We don't have a reason as to why we keep on having other security agencies that aren't even registered, of course, prior to the arguments of the Honorable Senyonyi on the floor of Parliament recently. Then we start seeing a report of what JAT is. We are seeing individuals dressed in black moving around with batons, beating up people. So the security agencies must be pushed out of because it's a civilian thing. Let them stay where they are supposed to stay and let the individuals exercise their duties. And then thirdly, one of the most important thing is that we shouldn't restrict media from doing its job. And I think it's their constitutional right as well. People need to know what's happening. Now, if you go on clouding media agencies from reporting whatever is happening around elections just because you want to hide a few things, a few errors that are going on, you are doing a disservice to the people. And that alone, people just end up becoming hobbits, like I was explaining earlier, because they're like, why should I waste my time going out there to to be a part of this system? What if I am at a polling station and someone throws a stone at me or something of that sort? I would rather stay at my place or go for work on that day because I need something to feed my family, and then they just shun away from the whole issue of getting out there to vote and exercise their constitutional mandate. And I think skewing a bit from him, in my own opinion, and I am not saying people should follow me, I in a way lost hope in the system. And my call to action maybe would be that we need to rethink what is turning out to be this whole democratic system that we are following as a country. Because the model is seemingly failing us. Over the years, as you were asking earlier, we have just been going over the same issues. And because of data, I don't have ground to predict that maybe something might change in 2026 or 2030. Yeah.
It's some sort of a cycle that we are now used to.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elvis. And he has cited what he thinks could be the factors that are contributing to lack of credibility in the elections today. And coming to Tamale with the same question, what do you think is causing lack of credibility in the elections today?
Mine will be solutions, because he has noted of the things that are causing our elections lack credibility. I think we need to bolster our electoral legal regime as a country. There is a lot that is lacking within the laws, electoral laws. Yes, these amendments should be implemented. Parliament regards itself so much in the non-essentials. Most times you find them majoring into minors and leaving out major things. Yes, a political process touches the heart of the country. So things like the challenging the presidential petitions, yes, the time when someone has to raise the concern, that must be addressed. Creating a legal framework that creates a cap on the amount of money that are spent in the elections. Just on the nomination day, with what I saw, the reflectors I saw, the borders I saw, yes, costers were lining up outside the gate, 5 of them. These people are going to be given lunch, these people are going to be given transport again, and also an allowance. Where is that money coming from a political party that we have never seen fundraise? And they diving their hands, their long fingers into our national pockets, coffers. We need to assess. The Electoral Commission, we need to come up with a law that controls the amount of money that we spend in these elections. The amount, the excessive expenditures, the excessive usage of money it has also led to have the quality of the leaders today deteriorate. Yes? First, disrespect from the voters, because they know for you to become a member of parliament, you had to first buy a bar of soap. You had to first buy knickers. There is a member of parliament that bought knickers. Yes? You have to buy knickers, pads. Why do that? Others are giving out trays of eggs. Why do you do that in the electoral process of this kind? Another one is meeting border cyclists at this period of time, offering them money. Why is he getting all that money? Electoral process. And so it's going to affect the credibility. That's why you're finding people that had the capacity, the credibility to be leaders have deserted themselves from these things. Now, the quality that we have today, if you have money, come, spend the much you can, have access to the national coffers, steal as much as you want. Because the moment they spend on you during elections, they must recover that money. So once that is worked upon, once we have established a legal framework that limits the amounts of money spent, we shall maybe also address the quality of leaders that we have today. But in the instances where we are today, where whoever has the biggest budget wins an election, we cannot have quality leaders. We cannot have quality leaders. We cannot. People who first cook us food, bring bars of soap, sugar, knickers. No, we cannot have quality leaders. And they cannot discuss policy. They cannot. The other thing that I think is also important, the amendments, like the amendments in the laws. Kanyehamba, in this case that I noted about, of Kizza Besigye and Museveni, distinguishes between an inquiry and a trial. The law provides for an inquiry into an electoral process, not a trial. You're a lawyer, you know what a trial is, that you must produce evidence. But the Constitution is clear. And the Act is clear that all you have to do, what the Supreme Court is mandated to do, is to carry out an inquiry. An inquiry, you go beyond receiving evidence and go do what Kanyehamba calls judicial activism. Under judicial activism, you go and assess your thing as a judge. You don't just sit and wait whoever brings more affidavits. Yes, then that one wins. No, it is an inquiry. Go back to the ground, assess, did this indeed happen? And that runs back to the time that is being given to these people. So people are going to bribe voters, well knowing the process, the time limit is not enough for these candidates, those that are aggrieved with the process, to go back and collect evidences. And so it's going to recycle every after an election, and we shall come back here and lament over the same things. But solvable things. Solvable things. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tamale. It is indeed crucial that the money that is spent during this election is questionable, because we see so many bundles of money splashing left, right, and we have no idea where this money is coming from. It has no accountability. There is no accountability body to answer all the questions that people may have in regards to this. So thank you very much. And coming to Elvis, would you have any recommendation in regards to the factors that you just cited that contribute to lack of credibility in elections?
Yeah, the very, very first one is that we should demilitarize elections. Let the army, let these other very, very good security agencies go back and sit and watch the space. We could, of course, again, because elections usually bring up a lot of chaos and confusion and words flying all over the place and a bit of disorder. But because we know the agency that is in charge of order and protecting people and their things, that's the police. Let the Uganda police force be in charge. Why are we having UPDF flying all over the place with guns loaded, not smiling at people? It is just not okay, because we are already frightened. I can't move out of my home to go to a polling station when the guys are moving. Even if they aren't saying anything, it speaks to something. When you see a priest, you know that there is mass happening very soon when they are dressed in their vestment. Now, when you see an army person moving around with a gun, you're like, wait, what's going on? Are we having a war somewhere?
Looks like the country is at war with itself.
Right? What are we fighting now? So you just run back to your gate and you're like, you know what? I'll wait for the results. That's one of the key things. The other thing is that the misuse of state resources. You hinted about it. Why are we having incumbents still using state resources to campaign to be re-elected into office? Why are we having security vehicles, the trucks, the vans, the motorcycles,
Ferrying people?
Yes, ferrying people from wherever they are, where they are coming from, to attend someone's nomination. That's state machinery. Let it stay there to do state work, not individual, not individual work. And why are we also having people on the grassroots? We have these residential district commissioners.
Piso, Giso, Tiso.
Yes, all of those source. Why are they intervening in the politics? Because they're appointees. Let them also be like any other normal person. Do not intervene, do not engage. The opposition side usually cites cases where RDCs and DPCs and all of those Cs get into there and start creating a lot of pulling of ropes in their constituencies. It usually happens in Mukono municipality, where Honorable Bachileke Namboze is the member of parliament. And you're asking yourself, why is this happening? Let them stay in their offices, execute where they feel like this is their mandate. Let them be there mediating land wrangles and not engage in politics, because you have an entire commission, very well staffed, because they are very sure Justice Byabakama is a very, very nice gentleman. Let them do their work. Do not engage. And then maybe
what do you use to measure good and nice?
He's a justice.
Okay.
And maybe one of the very, very last recommendation is speaking to the media. Let the media personnel do their work. Please just let them do their work. Let the people with the cameras and those very good people with that, because they even have press jackets. Why are you beating a person of the press? We recently saw issues where we saw during the by-election of one of Kawempe, of Honorable Nalukola, against this
Nambi Farida.
Yes, Hajati Nambi. And we are seeing videos of people counting ballots in a certain place, but then the press is being beaten. There is a gentleman who was beaten.
Francis Isano.
Yes, and why are you doing that? You are, because it's like you are, what are you trying to hide from the public? Why are you beating these individuals who are supposed to report back to that? Because we can't be in every place, but we need to know what happened there so that we can make better judgment. So why are you threatening them when they are doing their job? Because, and I think that's how the hashtag of journalism is not a crime came from. And maybe the very last thing I would want to say is that when we put a scale, when we put a weighing scale between bullets and ballots, the bullets will always win. So whoever is in charge of directing where the bullets go should rein a bit, should restrain themselves a bit, just for this period. And then we see what ballots can speak if bullets aren't, pointing at some direction.
Thank you very much. That is very beautiful. And the guests today have cited various inconsistencies and irregularities and loopholes that are within the electoral process. And also they have stated recommendations. They have stated that they have suggested that the electoral processes should be demilitarized, the media should do their work, and the use of state resources should be limited during this period. And we would like to know what you think. What would be your recommendations? Our topic today has been the credibility of the elections in Uganda since 1961, and ably discussed by our guests, who are gentlemen today. But we'd like to know, what are your thoughts in the comment section below? So we'd have our guests give us their concluding remarks, and we close off the show. Starting with Tamale Nkoyooyo. In a sentence, your concluding remarks to the viewers.
Thank you very much, Sharon. He talked about the GISO, PISO, but I think these days we have now come to HISOs, House Internal Security Organs. You are not safe in your house as you speak about these political things. The moment you are more than 3, just be sure there is a HISO there. But in my conclusive remarks, last week, we commemorated 50 years of Ben Chiwanoka, the first Chief Justice, who Senior Counsel Francis Gemara noted as a martyr, a servant of justice, and a statesman. The instances under which Ben Chiwanoka lost his life are reoccurring in our country today. The abductions, Sam Mugumya member of the People's Front for Freedom, went missing, was abducted, and to this date, even after writ of habeas corpus being filed by his lawyers, nothing has been made, no comment has come from the judiciary yet to that effect. And Benny Chiwanuka gave a very proper answer to the, I think then was called a critique, state critique, was called Stuart Daniels. Yes, that he gave a proper response to his writ of habeas corpus, and then that didn't really go well with the president then, Idi Amin, and we lost him. And we think the best way, in my perspective, we can celebrate such a hero of this country is not holding conferences, not judiciary having public lectures. The best way the judiciary should celebrate Benny Chiwanuka is being pragmatic and be active in the principles and values that led to the loss of his life in such a hard way that we cannot even trace his graveyard. Yes, we don't have a trace of Benny Chiwanuka's body. Yes, so the best way to celebrate him, to remember him, is upholding. We need to have the Chief Justice stand his ground, yes, about the state of judiciary, the crisis that the judiciary was in today, the one that Professor Dr. Kabumba talks about every day, being addressed. Why would someone come, lawyers, establish all grounds fit for someone to be granted bail, the likes of Dr. Kiza Besigye and Hajo Bedi Lutale, but what the judge does, runs a political show in a courtroom, a chamber, yes, where we're supposed to receive justice. So as we commemorate 30 years of our constitution, these are values, just as our preamble tells us, that looking back at our history, these are grounds, the death of Benny Chiwanuka, that we don't want them to reoccur. We don't want to see someone lose a life again. We don't want to have the kinds of abductions, the likes of Sam Mugumya. He has been a victim of state captivity and torture. He doesn't deserve this at that old age now he's approaching. Yes, and I call upon those who are watching, please call for the release of Sam Mugumya, and also speak to the judiciary, because the judiciary, of the three arms of government, as I conclude, Sharon, the judiciary is the one that is the arbiter. Yes, is where we're supposed to run to receive justice. And so the more it stays in the kind of a state that it is in today, the more we, the citizens, are going to suffer, because you're a victim. Tomorrow, you can be a victim of abductions, him and also the production house. Every one of us here can be a victim of that, and you will need the hand of a strong judiciary. But if we keep quiet about these things just because it hasn't come to you, we're going to fall victims, and like that, people are going to die, people are going to lose their loved ones. So we need to speak up against these injustices and speak up to a functional judiciary. Stop the public lectures and be pragmatic about the values that Benny Chiwanuka stood for and died for.
Thank you very much, Tamale. I don't need to re-echo that. That has been very loud and clear. And lastly, Elvis, your concluding remarks to our viewers.
Thank you so much. To the viewers, especially the youth, please don't sell your vote. Some of you who are still hopeful in the system, don't sell your vote. Don't sell your vote for 1K, for 10K. Don't sell it for 1M. Sell it for an ideology that you know will transform the society that we are in today. Uganda is a growing economy. We know statistics are telling us that, you know, we are the fastest growing in the region, 8.6%. Those are good statistics, but we need people who are in policy and they know what these matters mean. So don't sell your vote. Don't climb trucks and start making noise, because death is also real. Even if you are paid a lot of money, please don't do that. And maybe the very, very last thing is that, much as I lost hope in the system, those who are still, you know, into it, please go and vote. Please go and vote. Check in those registers and see that your name is aligning, and go and vote. Go and vote. For those of us who are waiting for a reform in the model, we can meet post 2026. But for now, this is what is being done, and we've spent a lot of money into this election, so I wouldn't want to have ballots taken back without ticks. So please go and exercise your constitutional mandate and until we meet again.
Dr. Besigye said, you the elites are the problem to this country. Why don't you vote? You're inspiring other people not to go and vote, and their voice is being stopped. So please encourage your friends to go and vote, you inclusive, go and vote. Be part of the cause and the change that you want to see in your country.
I am under duress. This under duress.
Okay. Thank you very much. That has been our show for today. Down in the comment section below, please comment and follow and subscribe. Until next time, I have been your host, Sharon Mukisa. Please vote.